the President Tinubu, I always put this thing on his table because he's the one to drive this. Like we said yesterday, he had an ambitious program for electricity whilst he was Lagos State Governor.
The Enron.
The Enron project. It was an ambitious project. And I thought he made that project because he understands the value, the importance of electricity to an economy. And now that he has become Nigeria's president, this is the time for him to now replicate such bespoke solutions for the entire nations. And I said President Tinubu should invest one day of his time and invite all the electricity stakeholders in Nigeria to a summit, to an electricity summit in the villa. One day. In that summit, he should ask the question, why is Nigeria on 3,000 megawatts? An economy like Brazil, with 200 million people like us, is on 180,000 megawatts. A small economy like Qatar, where he recently visited, with 2.8 million people, which is less than the population of the FCT, where we are today now, are on 12,000 megawatts. Then South Africa, with about 60 million people, on 50,000, 55,000 megawatts. India, 1.4 billion people, on 400,000 megawatts. Remember that if our population is 200 million, and India is 1.4 billion, it means India are more populous 7 times than Nigeria, isn't it? Okay, fine. If we were to supply India with power based on our own output, we want to give them 21,000 megawatts. Because we are supplying 3,000 to 200 million. And since there are 200 millions in India's population, we just give them 21,000 megawatts. But they are actually doing 400,000 megawatts. So President Tinubu should ask the question, why is India on 400,000? Why is Qatar on 12,000? Why is Brazil and Nigeria on 3,000? Guys, I want Nigeria to have 30,000 megawatts before my first tenure goes. What are the issues?
Is it achievable?
It's achievable. It's achievable. You know why it's achievable? The installed capacity in Nigeria today is in the neighborhood of about 14,000 already. The installed capacity. That means the infrastructure is in place.
Can generate 14,000.
Yes, but we're not doing it because there are problems here and there. And President Tinubu will ask the question, what are the problems? Tell me why we cannot even do the 14,000 installed capacity.
Do we have the transmission capacity to
Thank you. That
14,
is where he will now start seeing the problems and then he will start fixing them.
At the end, user end, do the discos have the capacity to distribute?
That is the reason, that will be the importance of that summit. That one day of his office that he invests in that summit, that is where he will see the big ticket issues. And that is where he can fix them. The first big ticket issue he's going to see, why we can't even do the 14,000 installed capacity now, is that gas supply to the thermal plants. And who is to supply the gas? The oil companies operating in Nigeria. Because their stakeholders, their MDs are in the office. And the president just turns and looks at them and says, guys, you don't flare gas in Qatar. You don't flare gas in Saudi Arabia where you operate. Why are you flaring Nigeria's gas? Please go back. You cannot flare Nigeria's gas again. If you have to produce crude oil and gas comes with it, you must harness the gas. If you cannot harness the gas, don't produce. Do you know that the matter of gas supply will be solved? How can Nigerian government, as we speak today, is taking money from the oil companies to permit them to flare gas?
In terms of penalties,
in terms of penalties,
we are more interested in harvesting the revenue from
small
penalties.
The small money. Think about how logical is this, that a farmer or a landholder who gave his land to farmers, he's taking money from the farmers for the farmers to burn away the yams that they have produced while his own family is hungry. How is that possible? Do you understand? So the government is taking money from the oil companies to flare the gas, and the thermal stations are saying we're not having enough gas supply. Read the Riot Act to the oil companies.
For instance, there's this directive that oil companies should prioritize sale of crude oil
Yes.
to local,
To local
refineries.
refineries, yes.
And it should be denominated in naira. If such directives also goes to the gas companies, prioritize supply of gas to thermal plants, and it must be naira denominated to lower costs in the process and all that.
It's going to solve the problem. We will no longer hear about gas as an issue. So that settles gas. So once the thermal plant begin to have sufficient gas, the next thing is that transmission will become an issue, because they cannot boost their output beyond what
they have. So it's a discussion for another day. Perhaps, is this a serialized interview?
Yes.
This is where we have stopped. Increasing generation capacity. What happens next? How do we increase the capacity of the TC? And are there other equities we can bring in to transmit?
Yes.
And when it gets to the distribution,
you fix the things in the distribution.
We'll deal with.
That is how President Tinubu will deal with
and
this.
we'll end it today. Nick Agule, Energy Expert. Well, thank you so much. These issues and the recommendations that you're putting on the table, no doubt, top notch. Is left for the political authorities to pick it up from there, pick other recommendations elsewhere, and indeed ensure that age-long energy crisis in Nigeria is resolved. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for
hosting. We'll take a
me.
break now. When we come back, we'll take a look at